Welcome to our next presentation in the virtual production track at FMX 2019. Our next presenter has studied software engineering and has worked as a director of photography professionally on many projects. And he has combined these two skill sets to create a software that he's going to show you now. It's my pleasure to introduce Matt Workman.
Cool, let's load right into it. Cool, so my name is Matt Workman. I'm the developer of a program called Cine Tracer, and I'm gonna risk an Alt-Tab here. This is live on Steam already, so if you're a student, please try to convince your teachers to go pick up licenses for everybody. That's the assignment from this. So I build this, and it's an app/game, and that's kind of like what this presentation focuses around. And on first glance, does this remind anyone of a certain video game? Does this look like anything? You're probably serious VFX artists and such. It looks like Fortnite, so you know it's Fortnite. So you might have been embarrassed to say that you recognized it. That's what it looks like, and that's the idea, is to make it look approachable like it is a video game. And this is really designed for non-professional 3D people, but I think it can be broad enough to be used by the professional industry as well. And I'm actually really bad at PowerPoint, so I designed PowerPoint slides in the game. And that's a cool thing about Unreal Engine, is that's really quick to make ideas. I made this object really quickly, if anyone's worked in Unreal Engine. I'm walking backwards, it's a little weird. So there's this one. And this entire presentation, you could go home and make it if you wanted to as well. This is made in the program. So it's a real-time previs app, and it's for filmmakers and cinematographers first, which is probably kind of odd for most people to hear. This is like previs for production people. I was a cinematographer. It's for a director on set. We have stuff for gaffers, lighting people, art departments who are on set, and it's designed to be usable by them. But also previs and VFX artists, you guys are cool too. This is already being used. We released in September of 2018, I believe, as an early release, and I released one map, which you'll kind of see what that means later, and some like pretty broken mechanics as just like a test. We just put it on Steam, see how it would do, and it sold incredibly well, and it's being used already all over the world. And I wrote on Instagram, this is my Instagram here. Feel free to go follow, like right now. I won't be offended if you take your phones out if you're following, that's cool. And there's DPs in Stuttgart who are using it, and they reached out to me and they were saying welcome and all that. And I told one of them that I would shout him out, so here it is. I don't know how to pronounce the name, Loritz, is that it? Does that sound about right? And if you go to his Instagram, he has a Kickstarter for a film he's working on, and he's using Cine Tracer to previs, and then I think he brought it to Maya after, so it's out in the world. The backwards walking looks funny. I'm gonna switch to this view. So we'll walk over to our next slide here. So I think a quick way to understand what this is to hit our inventory here, which is a concept for video games, but in Maya or Cinema 4D, it might be like your content browser. This is what we have. We've got cameras, lights, building stuff, props, and actors. In here are a bunch of cameras, and they're based on real-world cameras, and there's gonna be a lot more. My previous plugins for Maya and Cinema 4D had about 200 real-world rigs. We only have a couple so far, because they're a little bit harder to build for real-time stuff. But we're going to have pretty much the entire film industry as far as like on-set equipment present in this, and we're going to try to make it as realistic as possible. Building stuff, and there's more. So here's something you can't do in a PowerPoint slideshow, is this. So the concept of this is to combine the layout camera tools from popular DCCs like Maya, Cinema, even Unreal Engine Editor, combine those tools, the parts that I personally really like, and combine them with games. So as I'm building any new feature, it's like, well, how would we do this in Maya? How would we do this in a traditional way? And then how would you do it, honestly, in Fortnite? Like, what would you do? And like, what are the good parts of both? Which ones are faster? Which ones are more approachable? And it's been a really fun project to try to do that. And I also 3D scanned myself so I could do this. So this is me doing previs, and this is reminding myself to keep it fun. That's like a huge part of this, is to make it accessible and possibly even enjoyable to do it. So one of the first ways we do this for me is simply moving around, like moving the camera like in the viewport. So like in Maya Cinema, this is coming from like SolidWorks style, like you're revolving around like a part, like you're making a 3D model and you're revolving, you're orbiting the camera. And that's pretty foreign to most people the first time. I'm pretty sure the first time anyone picked up Maya, it was like, how do I just move? How do I just like move through the scene? And I think video games do an incredible, they make it very accessible for anyone to move, and it's very easy to learn. In this case, because not everyone plays video games that uses this, we just write on the bottom of the screen how you move. It's WASD. Not everyone knows that, but it's a pretty standard gaming thing. And most of this stuff also works with an Xbox controller, and will soon work on an iPad with touch-based. And so the first time you hand this to anyone, we want it to be that they know how to move. Throw someone who doesn't know Maya on Maya and be like, cool, move yourself down there. See how long it takes hours if you never really told them how to do it. With this, the first, like, I think my 5-year-old would be like, actually, he's incredible at games already, but it's incredibly easy to move. And that's something we take for granted. If you just live in Maya, you live in Previs, it's like, you know that. But most people don't, and this is targeted for people that are gonna jump right in cold. They don't even play games, they don't do any 3D. This is really who it's designed for. So the first one is moving. And in this mode we have, I call this lovingly Fortnight Mode because it's modeled after that, and I'll show selections. I can hit V, this goes into first person, and you can still see your feet. Oh, we can fly, I haven't shown that yet. That'd be a better view. And this is kind of like a VR view. You know, you're locked at a human scale perspective. So it makes the objects, as you look at them, they kind of make sense versus, I'll show you the traditional editor view in a second. It's really easy to lose track of the scale. Like even in first person here, you walk up to this sign and it's like, well, how big is this? Just looking at it, can you tell how big it is? As you get used to playing the game, you'll know that like level is about your eye height. So as you look up at it, it's bigger. And this is something that helps keep scale in mind the entire time. This is a more traditional video game view. And the fun part of it is that you get to walk around. If anyone recognizes the cameras on his back, how the jetpacks are made, they're from industry cameras. And the helpful part, the serious part about this is that it's fun, it's accessible, but it's also giving you a constant scale. Like if you're doing Unreal Engine stuff, you'll usually bring out the mannequin, start building your sets, and make sure that you have someone whose scale, so you're not building things like really weird proportions. You constantly have this. You don't have to worry about it. As you walk around the set, you always have human proportion in mind. And we do have a traditional editor mode. Let's see if it's going to load real quick. We have an effect. There is a sound effect, but I turned it off because I think it would be kind of annoying to hear that over and over again. And then this enters you into what you're used to for normal previs and scooting around. Spoilers over there. And you can clip through walls. But I really enjoy this. I think it's part of the reason it's been so successful so far in the non-gaming, non-3D space. These are filmmakers who do neither. Has been incredibly successful there. Is that having actual physics interactions with the objects just make it feel more real. So as you're going about your day doing layout and camera work, being able to actually interact with them is really satisfying, and it makes the whole thing a lot more fun, in my opinion. So the second thing we do, again, this is the concept of combining games with DCCs and what parts are cool, are moving objects. So if we take this, it's a little occluded here. We take this is a little nightstand here. We have gizmos. And that's the traditional way. If you switch to editor mode like this, gizmos like you'd expect. We have local rotation. But we also have, if you double click it, is a video game style of movement. I call it a trace move. We're line tracing to the object. We're getting that position and we move it there. So it's really fast. I think layout tools from Maya used to have this when you first imported it. We can invoke it at any time. If I scroll the mouse wheel, it rotates the object. We're against the wall. If I hold control, it'll ask for the normal of the floor or whatever you're putting it on. And it makes things like this trivial. It's like, oh, let's put it back on the floor here, spin it. What about the bed? What about this? So it makes previewing and moving objects much faster than like this. And so that's something that all video games do inherently, mostly because they're controller-based, so you just can't put gizmos in games in most cases. But it's something that's really, really fast, and I enjoy. And something else that I love doing, I'm going to change the lighting here. This chandelier here, this one's a little bit wonky to move. I'll try it here. Actually has physics. And so this is something that, again, would be kind of impossible to do in most DCs. I'm not saying that's not the most realistic physics in the world. There's probably a better physics Unreal Engine demo happening later today, but that's mine. That's how much I've pulled off. But you can add as many of these as you want, and you just bump into them. So there's this kind of like fun aspect as well in discovery. These go out of focus incredibly well. I'll probably do a demo with them. Unreal Engine's Bokeh from 4.2.0 or 2, I think it's 2.0. The new circular bokeh looks amazing, and it's really fast and it's really clean looking, even compared to doing. I've done bokeh stuff in all of them, like V-Ray, Arnold, and this is incredibly fast in real time. So that's moving objects. I'm going to turn the lights back on. This is the, And so the next one is, it's all real time. So what you see in this, that's what it is. We never render out. A lot of people are asking me for like in-game recording systems. You can literally just play this like you're a Fortnite streamer, record your screen with OBS or NVIDIA. NVENC has a lot of like new stuff coming out. You just record the screen, and instead of exporting sequences like 10 seconds, 5-second clips, you record the entire session and you end up with footage instead. So that's like the paradigm. It's like instead of little clips, you're handing editors like a full chunk hour of captured stuff. Not all of it's useful, but when you go through the camera, which we'll do in a little bit, you just record the entire time. You don't render. So it's a big difference coming from like even Maya Viewport 2.0 previs, you still render. You still have to sit there. So we're going to look at some camera controls here, and I'll head over to our little virtual production set. Again, this is all made right in Cine Tracer. I'll select this cyc wall here, and this is a pre-made object. It's not hard to model this if you know how to do it in Maya, but if I had to teach people, which I used to do, I used to teach cinematographers how to make these in Cinema 4D, it's a thing. You have to extrude and then bevel to make the corners. Here it's pre-made. I'm going to mess it up and probably not be able to get it back. But this is just a quick parametric object that I put together, and it makes making a physical cyc wall, even to scale, trivial. It's really easy. I don't remember what this was. I'm just going to eyeball it like that. So that's how this is assembled. It's just 2 cyc walls. You bring them in. You can change the color. I'm not going to change it because then I'm not going to be able to put it back nicely. And we have a lot of parametric objects like this. So picture this for everything that you would ever need on set. You bring it in, couple sliders, you're good to go. You can start rendering, start working with it. So for this demo, I want to show the cameras. So I'm going to hop back into this mode here. And I actually want to fly around for a second. This is lighting stuff. Are there any cinematographers here? Like, is this familiar, this equipment, to anyone? It's mostly VFX, I imagine. Well, for the film industry to have the ability, but to have the ability to actually put this stuff, pre-visit, use it. This is stuff that like we see every single day as cinematographers and lighting people that isn't typically put into previs, isn't considered. So I'm building out stuff that is for the gaffers, for the DPs. It's already being used, and you're going to start to see cinematographers handing you previs. And ours might look really, really good because we're using Unreal Engine. So let's hop in this crane here. So these are the cameras. I'll give you a quick tour. So this is the first mode that you get in. And one of the fun parts about this crane is that you just drive it around like a vehicle, very video gamey. For some reason, I still allow it to jump. This crane jumps. It can do spins. I think it's a good enough reason to buy it right there. Again, on steampower.com right now, drive yourself a techno crane. It's a good time. If I hit V, this is our second view. And I'm going to switch to the Xbox controller here. The controls are at the bottom. And again, it looks like you're watching a video game. If I move the left stick here, which is illustrated in the middle there, you should see the stick, it's going to swing the arm or pan it. If I go up with it, it's going up. This is how cranes work in real life. And we, of course, see the camera view there. This is the remote head at the end. I don't know if we can see it. I'm going to put the camera over there. If you can see the head at the end, this is pan and tilt here. So all live. And so if you're interested in how these work, the chances of you getting on set and them ever letting you touch the wheels is pretty low. It's very low. They shouldn't let you. But here, this is a very good simulation of it live. And if you talk to Jimmy Jib operators and people who do cranes, there are people that operate certain cranes, at least the head, with a stick like this. This is tuned very closely to how it works in the real world. And then the 2 trigger axes here retract the arm. So we can actually, I'm going to have to look at this now. We can move this arm, I can move the arm in, I'm controlling the head at the same time, and I can extend out. So this is 3 axes of control in real time right here. I could teach anyone to do this really quickly. And it relates one-to-one to how you'll have to do it on set as well. So if you want to know, this is a loosely modeled after a Super Techno Crane 30. I'm not going to claim at the moment that this is the perfect height, but we'll get it there. You'll know, you'll bring out the 30, what's the max height? We have it for you. I'll start to write more metrics, like I can draw like how high we are off the ground and stuff like that. It's all very easy. And if you want to know how high can we put this camera, does it fit in the stage? If you build out the stage in this, if you want to, well, no, it'll be trivial. It'll be very easy. And it doesn't have to be, this is not the crowd to say it to, it doesn't have to be the previs and VFX department. It can be almost anyone that's somewhat knowledgeable. It should really be someone close to the DP in my perspective, but there's nothing to say that the DP couldn't then just send this scene to the VFX supervisor. The VFX supervisor changes a couple things, sends it back. When we have multiplayer established, like Fortnite, basically, you could just do it all at the same time. So that's the crane. hop out of there. I'm going to delete it real quick, just get out of the way. This is a camera dolly. So similar concept. This one doesn't drive around yet. I really want to make it do that. But this one's just going to go down the dolly track. Same thing. Where's the shot? And so this is restricted to moving, right? So you could take a floating camera and animate this exact same movement. But it's actually a little bit trickier. If you look at the arm, how it goes up and down, and how the orientations are subtly different. We're not rotating nodally. I don't take the middle of the Maya camera and rotate it right there and do that stuff. That's kind of like the default way, or like doing like an arbitrary like pivot from something. This is how cameras move in the real world. You have a fixed linear axis here. Up and down isn't actually straight up and down, which you don't have to do that. But if you ever watch camera moves, there's usually arcs. Things don't move perfectly straight up and down. This doesn't either. The pan and tilt rotations, we're not doing entrance pupil simulation right now, but it doesn't rotate nodally, if that's not quite the right word, but I think that's what most people understand it as. It rotates like the real world version. So when you do the camera move, if you were to go into, say, full screen mode here, with the tech viz, as you execute this camera move, it's subtle. It will feel a lot more like a real world camera dolly move than if you just take a Maya camera key point with a rotation. It doesn't look like that. When you go, if you sold a client on that's what it's going to look like, you better get what's it called? Techno dolly, motion control crane, a Milo. You can't do moves like that in the real world unless you have pretty precise motion control. It's a subtle thing if you're selling clients on camera moves, but I used to do that as a DP, a lot of pitching. So those are the cameras and a quick demo. I could show some quick lighting. We're going to do more lighting stuff here in a second. But this is our flat map. So if you're on like a relatively low-powered computer, this is the map that most people should be using. You have to have like a pretty modern computer to do much more. This is a one-sided material or object, so we can see right through it like this, but then through here, we see it like that. So this is all pre-set up. I used to do all this stuff in Maya, but I'd have to set it up like every time, and I used to make plugins for it. But doing it right here in Unreal Engine, it just makes it really easy. And I think the DPs that use it are spoiled. They don't know what they're getting. They don't understand how cool this is. But one other thing we can do for the cycle, I think these lights are on. I don't remember how I set this up. Yeah, so I'll start turning some lights off. So this is all non-RTX. So this is just regular raster. But it's pretty good, and we figured out how to, I say we because it makes it seem like bigger. It's me. I'm the one making this, but I'm going to continue to say we. But just so that you guys know, it's just me. This is really just a spotlight, but there's a couple like tricks to do the spotlights in Unreal Engine that make the shadow soft. They blur it, and it's not like physically accurate soft. But if you're trying to show a soft light, it's pretty good simulation. And we have a trick with the reflections too, that this will actually work non-screen space reflections, so you'll see that in their eyes. Actually, can I see it in his eyes? Let's scoot up into his eyes. Oh, can you see? It's tiny. But you see the eye light from the light source? That's actually pretty physically accurate. It's not ray traced, but it's the way that their spotlights work. It's actually a spotlight, but it has a gigantic 12 by 12 body. And for some reason, I can get reflections in eyes, which is like 99% of the battle for lighting humans, in my opinion. In 3D, we get that already. So this is non-ray tracing. This works on Mac, and this should work on iOS. I haven't pushed it yet, but this quality is pretty cool. This light source is pretty simple. This is how all the objects work. You click them. They have a slider. You can change the color really easily. And you can just make more of them. Spin them around, pull them up. It's pretty straightforward to learn compared to having to like wade through the settings of all the traditional DCCs. I'm going to make this white again. I can just pull saturation down. I just wrote this color selector. Has anyone written a color selector before? You probably don't have to. They're in all the DCCs. I had to write this one. I'm proud of that. That took a long time to be able to do that. And so all these lights do turn on. I can turn this one back on and do pretty much proper stage lighting. So this is something that the DP and the gaffer would just jump on this and like, this is it. They'll look at the lighting and whatnot. Or as the VFX supervisor or previs artist, you have the same tools. And if you did this, I mean, you could do it wrong and not do set up lights in the way that it's not going to make sense in the real world. But if the previs artists use this tool set as well, if you showed this to a DP or even directors that have been on set, it would make sense. Whereas when you make tech viz stuff where it's like just normal 3D lights that they can't really like say what they are. They can't read that. This is readable to anyone that's on set. And to save performance, what we do for the cyc wall is we can make it self-illuminated, so we don't have to actually waste lights lighting it up. So we can do that. So I'm going to load into a different map. And this is how the game works. You basically make a new project, which we'll do. You make a map, and you save it, and it's that simple. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about my background really quickly. This is it. this is it. So this is me, the 3D scan Matt Workman. I was a commercial cinematographer in New York City for like roughly 10 years. And I started off in hip hop music videos. I think I've shot around like 200 or 300, starting off like micro budget. Craigslist, is that a thing here? Yeah, there's Craigslist here? Yeah, okay, Craigslist. I was the king of Craigslist music videos, like so many. I won all of them. In New York, Boston, in the States, where I was at. I don't know if that's the thing to brag about, but I am now. And I kept doing it, moved to New York City, and eventually moved into much bigger music videos and then into commercials. Here's the proof, me with a camera. There it is. This is me with Justin Bieber right before he blew up. This is right before his first big music video, who I'm friends with the director who did that too. And this was kind of the transition here. I started to work for Viacom MTV, so I've shot like hundreds, maybe even thousands of commercials for Viacom companies. So MTV, VH1 is Spike. I did a lot of Spike, like tons and tons of commercials. And this is what I'm proud of. This is me with the Burger King guy, the King, I think. And we're at spring break with MTV. So it was a fun couple of years doing commercials like this. Someone got killed on this shoot. It was in Acapulco, Mexico, so it was kind of weird. But the King was there. So what I ended up doing as a DP, right? It's like, so I'm a cinematographer. Where does this 3D stuff come in? Is that I'm in New York City and I'm doing a lot of commercials, and there's a lot of green screen. And we were doing early virtual production. I wasn't doing it. I was the DP on it, just kind of like watching and being like, I don't know what this is. And we did some of the first like 360 commercials for Facebook and Bacardi. That was one of the first ones that came out. But as a DP in this space, you know, the set designer would come in full 3D set, and this is being presented. This was it. It's like we would do this in New York, big meetings with everybody. Production designer comes in fully 3D set. The VFX people have all this previs and all this stuff, and I'm sitting there with like a notebook, and I have nothing to show anyone. But I have ideas. I have input that I need to give. So I started learning Maya again. I kind of knew it, started picking up programming, and I started to build kind of what you've seen before, but it's much cruder, looks really much worse, but learned how to do 3D again. And was in Maya, was in Cinema 4D. Oh, this transition actually kind of broke, but I deleted that building. This is just a quick preview. This is me with a techno crane. Again, I was a DP. Me on a scissor lift. And then over here, oh, look, it's the same techno crane and scissor lift over here. I'm basically remaking what I used to do for a living in the game, and I'm obsessed with it, and I do it almost every single day, unless I'm presenting with something like this. There was a transition I was trying to make. Oh, yes. Used to do it in Maya in Cinema 4D. Here it is. But then Andy Blondin, shout out, from Epic Games, reached out to me and asked me if I would be interested in building it in Unreal Engine. I did a couple tutorials, started to build it. I didn't know anything about Unreal Engine, nothing. And this is almost my 1-year anniversary of starting to program it. And now we're building it Unreal Engine, so this is the shout out. These are Paragon characters. And so I went from a cinematographer with a little bit of programming background to kind of like an accidental game developer. So I had some background. And here's the crane here. And this one actually has physics. I was testing this before. I actually smashed this out of the way. We could technically turn physics on, and I have a decent-sized Instagram channel where I used to dedicate it to just blowing things up in the game. And so this is a scissor lift, which I'm also proud of. Some people that really don't love the gaming aspect, but this isn't for them if they don't like that. You can drive this around. You can bring it up and down. This one isn't really made after like the physically accurate real-world ones, but we'll build all the scissor lifts. You'll drive them. It's fun, but at the end of the day, you walk away with a tech viz that's very accurate. You can call out the model if you want it. That's a big deal in production, just to know that kind of stuff. For previs, it might be somewhat abstract. But we make everything a game. Like, you can select it. You could move it, but you could also drive it. And that what if, like, what if you could drive this? What if it was a game? It started off as like kind of a joke a year ago, but then became my life. This is me breakdancing and using Unreal Engine. And these are, we'll go build something with this, but these are smoke assets. You can build like almost anything, I believe, in Unreal Engine visually and coding-wise too. And you can just move the smoke around. It's like the easiest thing. And it still looks great. It goes out of focus. It's a little expensive to do it, but that's a smoke asset. And these are actually, this is a New York City set. I'll turn on the lights a little bit. All these assets are free. So if you're interested in doing Unreal Engine, what is it? This is the Showdown Demo. If you go to Unreal Engine, you load up the Learn section, you download the Showdown Demo, which is like a VR thing. I just ripped all the buildings out of it. So like this New York subway, all these buildings, they're all set up with really great shaders. You're allowed to use them in games, I hope. because I am, and I'm selling this. But so this is just free assets that I built this level with, really quick layout. And I just give this as a set that people can go and start to use. So we're going to go into the subway. What's this one? Oh, I'm so glad I made these slides. Actor demo, light demo, underground, yes. Okay, so this feels like going into New York City. I used to live there. It's a little bit cleaner. I'm going to set the mood here up. And we're going to turn the corner to a little pre-made scene I have here with some fighting that has just happened. So I'm going to show really quickly how I got to this point here. These characters come. Oh, that's a shot. So I'm going to take her, and we're going to look at some of the character controls. This is a fun demo. This is the set from the Reflections demo from Unreal Engine. You've probably seen it. There's usually like 2 people fighting in it, kind of like ninja-looking people, and I put her in instead. But it's a really cool demo of the screen space reflections right now. And the one on the floor is the most important one. The floor reflections I feel like are the most important in almost any case when it comes to lighting and doing cinematography stuff. And the screen space ones in Unreal Engine look incredible. Ray tracing is going to be really cool, but like these look really great as well. So I'm going to take her, and I'm going to go to pose mode. I'm going to double click her, and so we can just scoot her around. And there's something fun about doing this is a VFX crowd, so it's layout. It's fun doing layout, but we have the lighting, right? It's not like ray traced necessarily final lighting, but it's pretty close to like what you might want if you wanted like a blue tone. And then we're gonna light this scene up. Oops. And the lightsaber is on, and it's emitting light. She's being lit by that lightsaber. These are pre-made objects that we make, but we're gonna make all the normal ones you'd want. And it's fun. I like building them out. And there's something cool about doing the layout like this. It's really fast and light. You're seeing it in real time. Again, I can hold control. She's on the wall here, on the ceiling. And it's really fast. It's so fast that it can be playful. And I think that's where fun things can happen. And it's where if we make this fun enough and it makes the good results, it's why people play Fortnite creative or Minecraft creative. They'll play it for 24 hours straight. They'll play it forever. And that's what we're trying to get done here, that it's actually fun to do. So this is a really basic IK rig that I'm working on. I have a couple redesigns. We're going to drop out the elbows. But I'm trying to put like not animation quality, but like pretty decent like IK rig into this game. And again, make it accessible to non-filmmakers, or to filmmakers rather, non-3D people. And this is like pretty typical, like, elbow target. That's actually incredibly confusing to non-3D people, which I've built so many character rigs at this point that I forget that. So we're going to move the elbow rig to her elbow and kind of like constrain the rotations to what probably makes sense. I think there's something called Magic Poser on the iPad. We're going to be using a very similar rig. And so this does what you'd expect it to do, like that. And we'll have more and more control and finesse over it. And we can save this preset. Here's the default A pose, kind of. And then you can save up a couple selections. It's non-destructive. And eventually we'll make it so that you can store these and just keep bringing them down from the cloud. Or someone makes you a bunch of poses, you can bring them in. And so when I design this stuff, what I have in mind isn't like the control. Like you go into Maya and any of those things, you want all the control, perfect stuff. You have to animate it. The thing that guides me when I'm building these is time. How much time does the user have? These are filmmakers who don't get paid for previs. They don't get paid for pre-production. They don't have much time. We have to do this really quickly. So this actually takes a long time relatively for them. So the other thing that's fun to do is to just pull in Mocap. And there's like millions of Mocap libraries that we can pull in and put in this game. She's playing the piano with a lightsaber right now, so it looks kind of weird. She can play the guitar with a lightsaber, like this. She can dance with it. I made an Instagram video like this. It was fun to make. And then if we pick a nice sword attack here, we had the other character. We could bring out more. It's fun. It's like playing with like G.I. Joes or something like that, but they're moving and it's 3D and it's lit. And that's the idea, is that it's quick to get to this point. You don't have all the control in the world, but as we add more and more things into the game, we'll have pretty much represented what you would want for like generic filmmaking. And what you would do for this in most cases, because you have to film this, so like actually getting the right frame is pretty tricky, is you have to pause it. And so you would do this with multiple characters, and once you get used to that, you should be able to block out, especially if you want to do a lightsaber fight, you could do it at the moment. We're going to have more and more stuff. Hopefully like 5 minutes, maybe less, you're in there with a fully lit scene. There's presets for the lighting at the moment. But that's the goal, is speed. We want this to be done really quickly and as accessible as possible. And I'll bring out some lights now. I'm going to do it in Fortnight mode here. So let's look at some lighting in here. This is a fun place to do it. So we have movie lights, which are represent the actual film lights, but then we have practicals, which I think should kind of like make sense to everybody. So we have this flush mount light. So this is like your normal house light. It's on the floor. You can put it on the wall. And it looks especially good. And this is, I think, a fun way to actually learn about lighting. I'm going to work on these tutorials in the future. Is like, what is this light accomplishing? Like, what are we doing with this now? It's now not technical. Aesthetically, what are we doing with this light? So a light like this is emitting light in all directions straight down. So we've actually lit 2 walls, right? We're lighting this wall. I'm lighting this wall. I think I can do it with G still. Oh, this might have broken it. We can change the color really quickly. I'm going to just reset that real quick. And we're lighting these 2 walls, right? And it's showing up screen space in that reflection there. And then from like a cinematography point of view, what happens is because the floor is shiny or it's wet or something like that, we're actually lighting the floor too in the screen space reflection. So that's basically what a light like this is for, and that's how you use it in architecture, sort of. And you would use something similar in film, and we can represent that really nicely here. And this light at the end of the day, it's the same light every time, but I can switch out the mesh that represents it to be anything. And we'll have a gigantic library of them. And so the art director, the DP, the director can pick out what light fixture they want and then actually look at like a reasonable representation of it. This one's cool. This is an Aes Profile in here, right? Like we've all done. And it's just doing a little light like this. Throw a couple up there. This is not going to be a nice lighting. This won't be the best lighting in the world. But I want to show one more. Is the tube light. This is like the bread and butter of the modern cinematographers right now, are LED tubes that can change color. And this will be better with ray tracing, but these are pretty good too. Throw it on the wall. And the first thing most DPs do, that follow me anyway, is you go into a set and you make a design with the tubes that you never were able to afford or like try out in real life, and you can design something here. Again, the screen space reflection is really satisfying, and that's what most DPs are looking for that. I'll frame up a quick shot on this one here. I am not timing. How are we on the timeage right now? Can I ask? Okay, cool. Good to know. So this is the floating camera. And it's the same controls. You can use the Xbox controller. And this is fun to design one-take commercials. I've designed, I don't know how we did it. I've designed for like Google, for Facebook, like one-take commercials where we're just wandering around the set and there was no previs. And I don't know how we pulled it off. But now, and I have this kind of in mind, this is a really good one. So you would screen record this once you have everything set up, and then you can have a live performance take. You're like, okay, we start with her. I don't have anything else in this scene. There's someone here. We go over there. And people can, whoever can take different cracks at doing the camera move. Maybe someone you wouldn't expect, has a great idea. Hopefully the director has a take. You could give, maybe you don't want to do this to agency. I mean, I would give it to the creative director at the agency in a second. I think they'd have fun. That's kind of half the point of commercials at the high level. And just give people a take at it and like have them communicate like this. And I think as my generation and people who grew up gaming, come into the higher positions, I think that they'll really like this. Like, so the creative director has an idea. He's like, what if I could get a shot, like this? You can't really hand those people, non-3D people, Maya or anything really, except for a program like this. And I think that they'd be able to get this. These are the same flight controls. If anyone's like flown like a Mavic, like a DJI Mavic or drone, these are drone controls. So if anyone that's done that, this is exactly how it works, except it's a cinema camera. So I'm excited by that because, like I showed earlier, I used to do tons of meetings. It was all meetings and trying to convince people and pitching and stuff like that. And I think there's a danger, but there's also some fun in including them in the pitch, even if it's just to kind of like let them play around with it. Might loosen up the room a little bit. So here's some depth of field happening now. You click, I'll do it with the mouse for now. There's a little tiny dot there that doesn't get screen captured when we do the storyboards, which we'll look at in a second. And that's how you focus. So it's just you click, line trace, focus. This is a pretty cool demo for depth of field here. And also the non-screen space eye reflections. I still don't know how we have reflections from these, but I abuse it like crazy. And I build them in a way that we can take advantage of them here. And there's a lot so this is just being lit by the lightsaber right now. This is a 3D character from Character Creator. Anyone use that? By Reallusion. They're pretty good. And I took out their eyes and I put in Paragon eyes, which are kind of like the latest and greatest real-time Unreal Engine eye shaders. And it makes a pretty convincing character. Hair is hard. Hair is still a very difficult thing to do. So that's a lighting demo and the characters. So I'm gonna hop out of this one and load this up. So this is a new concept because when I first started building this, again, I'm not a game developer. I still don't know what optimization really means. But so I built gigantic maps. I was like, let's build huge maps. And it turns out those don't load on computers very well unless you have like a huge workstation like I have at home. So this is my new concept. It looks gross. Like you'd be fired at Ubisoft if you couldn't show this to anybody. But it's just one landscape tile, which we can actually do as voxels. So we could actually give people in-game the ability to morph the landscape and build tunnels and stuff like that. And we're just procedurally spawning grass onto it. And we can have the users pick what type of grass. This is Quixel. Quixel mega scans down there. I used to 3D scan stuff, but they do such an incredible job. It doesn't make sense to continue to do that. So this can evolve into a very mini procedural map that people can make, and we can give you everything, like every biome you'd ever want, except for something that's like Avatar, something like bespoke, but like general stuff we can do. And this is a great place to look at the different time of day systems. So this is our overcast. It says on the top right. This is not final UI, more still just placeholder as we're developing it. This is kind of like Fortnite PUBG lighting like you'd be used to. Like you can see in interiors even though there's no light. This is a warmer daytime when we have people, it'll make more sense. And this is magic hour. And you can spin the sun. And there's so much we can do with this environment system, and it's real time. You can just look at it right there. I don't let people do it yet, but we can give you sky control and make the sun pink and stuff like that. I actually don't want people to do that at first. And we're also controlling how much atmosphere and like atmospheric perspective there is. So you'll see that the mountains in the background are fading off, that sort of thing. We control all of that for you, so it just natively looks cinematic, and that's kind of by my definition. So what I want to show now is I'm going to hop into editor mode here. Where's the sunset? Because it matters. There it is. Okay, wait, yeah, that's it. I'm going to show the building system and how, again, we're combining video games sort of with like DCCs. This is really a video game workflow here, but even the UI that I did is a little bit different. So I've gone through a lot of iterations of this because I don't come from this background. I'm just like, I make an idea, I wake up in the morning, I have an idea, and I program it. That's what I've been doing for about a year. So those are kind of like bad ones. These are our procedural ones, so you can change the parameters on them. They're not great at the moment. But the system that I'm pretty proud of right now is this block system. So you bring out a floor piece like this, and under the hood, as I start to build this out, this is actually the Fortnite building system. So I loaded up Fortnite Creative, and I was able to really quickly kind of reverse engineer how they snap together, and their general proportions, we went a little bit different with the scale. But the Fortnite system under the hood is really great, and they have players building houses in the game really fast, so there was something to it. So we look at a block piece like this, and even in like Unreal Engine Editor, what you normally would do is bring out another one, right? And I can turn on snapping, and you would go like that, right? And you would continue to bring out pieces. That's pretty standard for modular building. But what I did is try to take it one step further and make it easier for people that really don't know how to build a house. When I first started making 3D houses, I had no idea. It's like we live in them, but I didn't know how to do it. What I do is I put a plus sign on each side. You click it, and then you can add a floor piece. And it perfectly places it. And it's not just next to it as we move into other pieces. They're actually interpenetrated to do the snapping system properly for Fortnite. But it picks the piece for you. You can also then choose a wall, and we can go up from here. And then the wall piece, again, has slightly different ones, and we're working on the UI to make this more straightforward. You can go over, you can go up, and you're snapping. And some of the proof of it is that this corner, this is a Fortnite corner. That's how they snap together. A lot of games do it that way. So we can keep building out this way. And then this piece here, this is like the main block of the system. You can change the subtype with different doors. And we can put actual doors in it. I just haven't done that iteration yet. And I can make hundreds of iterations of just this, and you can snap a whole house together pretty quickly. So I'm just going to build this out really quickly. This is a corner, so this is going to corner towards us. There is grass on the floor because I didn't want to build the foundation. But we could do a foundation for this too. Just take a little bit longer. So to snap together a room, I hope that it's intuitive enough that most people can figure out at first, but we have a lot of tutorials online as well. So I think after like 5 minutes of watching someone do it, it should be possible. For a corner like that, you typically have to cap it. This is a huge, obvious corner cap. We can make more subtle ones that look like the regular stuff that you see in a house, but we'll just have different types for that. It's not changing. Oh, there we go. So we would then quickly corner cap this. If anyone's done video game level layout, This is pretty similar. And in time, like at the moment, for making this like procedural, making it kind of like a Revit, which is a thought still, I still want to give presets because it's a time thing. If I allow you to type in the dimensions of every wall, some people will want to do that to build out the exact set. Most people just want to, and this is most in a very general way, want to do it quickly. It's like, let's just build a quick house with a kitchen in it. And this is going to get you there. So it's just as easy to start building out the interiors like this. Open this up. There is grass in the kitchen, so it's kind of weird. Pop out some windows. That's not a window. And we do have a material system as well. You can apply materials. It's not in like my favorite state at the moment. I used to be able to make it wet and dirty, but I took it out for this build. But this is the fun part again about building this house, is that you can walk around it and experience it. And this is as close to VR as we do at the moment. You see your feet, you see the wall, and this is something again, as you have to pitch with this. Like I'm presenting with Cine Tracer. This is my vision for it. Someone's going to have to present this to someone. That's the point of this. And I think instead of recording movies, you would bring this to the meeting, plug it in, and give it to someone. Do a wireless controller, it'd be even sexier. Give it to the person and let them walk around like, this is the set that we're thinking about. If they're turned off by the video game aspect of it, that's fine. You can put them into first person. I can make a cleaner view. And like, it's just this. It's just one stick and let people walk around. It's like kind of like what VR walkthroughs want to be for ArcViz. I still think this is the first step before that's the VR walkthroughs is really like a accessible thing. I think the Quest is going to be pretty good, but this you could do on your iPad when I'm finished with it. You build your set, and it does take time to dress it, but I'll show you. I guess I haven't demoed it, but big prop library. This is bad UI still. They are going to be sorted, and I have access to like an infinite amount of assets through the marketplace in different places. And this is like House Flipper or any in-game building system. I guess I'll go to electronics, right? It's always the first thing I build for some reason. But this is very much like a video game building system, and we use that, and it's fast. You can't go in there and start changing the how come I can't think of the word? The vertices. You can't change the vertices. You're not getting in there and doing any of that. But again, this is for speed. This is when I'm making most of these systems, I'm looking at a user that has about 30 minutes total, and they'll never come back to it. And can they still get something out of it? So I'm going to quickly build up this house and then show the storyboard system that's built into this. So for roofs, or ceilings technically, we would just do this. And there's faster ways of having this happen. The way that Fortnite does it is really fast because there's people shooting at you when you're building houses. No one shoots at you in Cine Tracer yet. And so this is how we do roofs. So you would then put a roof here. And to know these rules takes a long time, even for level layout people in games. We can just plop one of these up here, and it's contextual. It'll only allow you to add a piece that makes sense. You would then spin it. I mean, depending on which way you want the gable to go. I had to learn the word gable for roof types to make this. And again, it's contextual. These are corner. This gets a little bit more complicated, but again, at the end of the day, this is the Fortnite roof system. You can just contextually build out the rest of the roof here. And then for here, you have to end cap it. That's the way that the snapping system works. And there's corners, and just with this few variations, you can build a lot of roofs. And if I build, I think like 3 or 4 more styles, you can build any modern roof system. And you don't really have to know that much about architecture. You can change the materials. It's a little laborious right now, so I'm going to skip it. But there's a house. And again, the fun part, I think, I think it's really useful. Like when I'm doing previs now, like not that I'm shooting that much anymore, I do walk around. It's like you are location scouting. It's like, okay, like this is what it is. Like, where are the angles? Like what's going to look good? We go in here. What are the opportunities? And the same lights and that sort of stuff work in there. So I'm going to make a quick scene over here. Maybe make sure that sunset's there. Cool. Let's see. I'm going to make kind of like an interview scene here and show the storyboard system. So let's grab a car. There's a huge opportunity for cars. I've really not given this class like enough work, but a lot of car previs happens. I still only have this one with an interior, but you can open the doors and we can make all the options possible here. You can change the color of the car. This is the old UI too for it, but there's a car. And I want to show these scans right now. As we look at digital humans, that's one of the harder parts. But these are 3D scans. They're really popular on the internet. They're from 1024 or 3D Scan Store. If you follow Beeple or a lot of like the Cinema 4D Daily people, these scans are everywhere, and we're licensed to use them in here. So it's just a 3D scan of a person, so you can't move these people, but you get so much for free. And this is what people really have been starting to use a lot. They look like real people. This is, for all intents and purposes, a 3D photograph of a person. And to take like one of these and get them into this perfectly with the fold is like almost impossible. Like, to capture it and have it be realistic like this one is. It can be done at like at a super high level, but to take one of our characters and get them into this, it's still not there. And so there's a ton of value in these characters. And we did a little bit of surgery here. We'll go in there. It's a little scary. This is not his angle, you know what I mean? But we also replaced his eyes. This sounds crazy saying that. We replaced his eyes with Paragon style eyes as well. And so this character is extremely low poly. Entire character, well, for games it's not, but for visual effects it is. It's 100K polys, the whole thing. His head's probably like 5K. It's like absurd. It's nothing. But as soon as you change his eyes, and we're going to do a lighting demo with it, it starts to feel real to me. And a lot of people have been using these, and the previs that's coming out of, again, non-technical people who use this, these are cinematographers and directors, looks incredible. And I'm going to try to do that now if I can. So I'm going to take out what you would do in the film industry. This is a 12 by 12 frame. It's a little bit big. You would probably bounce into it in this case. We're going to put it here like this, turn this down. Let me hop into a camera. Oh, I didn't show that many cameras. Let's do some cameras. So here's a handheld rig. Again, he is not at his full potential, but you can walk around with the film camera, and that's it, unfortunately. But we're going to add procedural shake and be able to go side to side and crouch and all the things that I see as potential in here anyway. And you can use the camera like that. Actually, this handle is kind of working. So I'll hop in here. So look at some of the camera controls now. I don't love this HUD, but if you look at the top left, focal length, iris, and ISO, and they're pretty close to like how it would work in the real world. So you scroll, has preset focal lengths. I hate seeing things like 17.5 mil and stuff like that. And it does exist technically on zoom lenses, but for now I enforce actual primes that you would have in the real industry. It just DPs, when they see previs that have like really weird focal lengths, like a 45.3, they instantly, their brain turns off. So I'm helping. Like, this is going to help everyone stay on the same page just to call out actual focal lengths. Cinematographers and directors have emotional connections to focal lengths. Most of them that work in this long enough, they have memories of filming with a 40. It means something, even brands. So we're helping by keeping this here. Like a 35, you tell that to a cinematographer, they're like, oh, I love the 35. It's the idea. And so we can hold Alt and scroll. Oh, that's not right. It's Control. Don't know my own game. So Control is changing the iris. So it's exposure overall, right? But in Unreal Engine, because I'm using their simulation, it's also changing the depth of field. So it just became shallower. I don't know if that's apparent. I can say stop down quite a bit. And so the depth of field is deeper, so the background's more in focus. And it's not like I don't think it's like 100% physically accurate, but it's close. It has a representation of it. I think it falls off too quick as we open up. But so here's wide open, and then so ISO, this is digital, this is like a conceptual ISO, is just global exposure. So it's also like ND filters on set. It's just make it darker and brighter, but don't change any other aspect of the image other than the brightness. So depth of field is the same. Oh, got real bright. So there's depth of field. We're on a 35. I'll go to something like this. And then we'll go to magic hour. His reflection. So I'm actually going to, I'll hop back in for a second. Let's see, what should I also show? So let's do the aspect ratios. This is not accurate yet. We're doing 16:9 center crop, and if people who play with ultra-wide monitors are making my life very difficult, because it basically makes the sensor ultra-wide, which doesn't exist in the real world, so I have a lot of math I have to go figure out to make that work. But we can do different crops. So this is your anamorphic. It's not really anamorphic, but it's a 2.4 matte. 4:3, which any major commercial you have to protect for 4:3 these days still, so you can check it out here. And 1:1 if you're shooting for Instagram. And funny enough, all the commercial DPs who use this right now are asking me for 90 degrees to shoot vertical, because we shoot a lot of vertical Snapchat, Instagram ads, and fashion ads are vertical. So we'll have it so that you can previs with a physical camera, flip it 90, and it should be physically accurate. This is getting picky here, but if we look at his eye light, again, it is screen space. How's it look here? So it's a big eye light, right? I actually don't like that. It's soft, but I don't like how that is. I'm going to focus again here, like this, and I'm going to switch it for a 4x. And this stuff is pretty accurate. It's up to the DPs to say like how accurate they want it. I'm going to switch it for a smaller source here, and first person. There we go. and bring this down. So the highlight should be smaller. Let's check it out. Yeah, it's a little bright, but that's more like the size highlight I was going for. And that's cinematography. Like, that is what DPs make. Those are the decisions they're making on set. These are the things they're looking for, and we have it. Good to know. Let's see what. Oh, the storyboard system. Yeah, I think that's probably going to wrap it up. Let me switch back to the float to my dude. You can also play as a woman. We're going to make a full character customizer. So let's do a quick storyboard here. Go back to the stand-ins. We have a bunch more actors. Let's put someone on the car. I'm going to put you on the car here. And I'll show the storyboard real quick. I'm going to use a floating camera just because it's a little faster. We're going to go widescreen. Going to ISO down like this. So let's start storyboarding this system here. So typically you have to render. You go to InDesign. You go to Photoshop. That's still possible. When you take screenshots in this game, you're going to hit Enter. There's a sound, but I don't have sound connected in here. We'll have like a little preview of it show up. When you take that screenshot now, we have this. I got bright. Just lit you guys. So this is a basic storyboard system, and you can change the name here. We can say like wide shot. And the idea, and we can go in bigger. You can check it out. The idea is to not have to round trip to your Photoshops and whatnot. Oh, that's not supposed to happen. Look at the board and be like, we don't really like that. Let's if you're operating for a director, they're like, give me options, right? So it's like, okay, so like we'll just bang out like a ton of different shots really quickly. Capture that one. What if we come a little bit more frontal and wider? This goes really quickly. It's like, okay, let's do a 2-shot. I don't know what this commercial is, but he's in focus. So our depth of field's kind of not shallow. So let me open up, make it a little more obvious. He's in focus now. I can zoom through to him. His collision's getting in my way, actually. So we'll do that. Screenshot this. Screenshot him. And again, we don't have take systems yet that are going to show where the other shots were. You only have the active one. That's a system we can build into it. This is helpful, and to see this, like that is where the camera was, and you can even. Well, actually, I don't know if this is true. You can jump on it. I don't know. I think that's interesting. So you hit B for now to the storyboards, and we don't have click and drag for pages yet because that's hard to write still. But you can reorganize these and prioritize which ones you like. You're like, oh, we don't like this one, we'll get rid of it. Change the name, and if you click this, and this is still work in progress, that'll actually screenshot it. It's a PNG in your project folder, so you should be able to print this out. That's the big ask still. As much as it's like, being on set is still very like old-fashioned because it works. All these people who are using this, they're doing previs and they're using technology. At the end of the day, what's the deliverable is printing it out on an 8.5 by 11 many times and distributing it to the agencies. And everybody, we keep that in mind. This is that workflow for them. They should be able to print this out pretty easily. If you have more pages out, we'll have more settings. And the idea is to make this beautiful in the end. It's not the greatest looking layout, but we'll make it really nice looking so you'd be proud to like hand this off to your whoever, your boss or who's ever using it. So that's the storyboard system. I want to put smoke in here, and I think that's going to wrap it up. I want to do the smoke. I want to show some of the particles. There's everything that you've seen in like AAA video games, like all those effects, we can put them in here, and it's pretty fun. So I'm going to put them all in real quick. So I'm going to drop this tree here. It doesn't have to be a tree, but that's what it was. Give it a second. It's going to be a second. I'm going to also then put out some smoke back here. Actually, when we come back, the snow should have propagated. Put that there, here, here. You can hide the emitter under the ground if you want. You can't get to it then, so you'd have to go under the ground like this. Oh, there it is. The snow has come. Here's our snow system. And these are all like stock Unreal Engine starter content particles. Like most of these, you could just go get for free and start using. It does take a little bit of time to understand how they work. The new Niagara system, the particle systems we can do, some of them react to light, some of them have physics, some of them are light sources themselves that can be ray traced. I can put that all into this and make it as simple as bringing out a Christmas tree, right? And giving it some sort of physical embodiment that makes it make sense to people versus like spawn snow and set parameters. I still think like as I'm trying to make it a game, it's like, let's put a tree in there. And that's kind of a overt one. It's just an idea. But that's what I'm working with basically every day is like trying to take the things we do on set, things that happen in the real world. How do we bring them together into one ecosystem like this? So there's smoke. This one's fun too. So this one you can put again at an angle. So like it's going up, but I can do this. put it on the side. Where's my camera? And so now we've pretty much altered it, and I'll switch the time of day here. This is my twilight. And I have one for overcast, so we just made it snowy. And it is possible, I don't have it yet, I'd have to unify all the landscape materials to change everything to be like, let's make everything have snow. Boom, everything could have snow right on it, perfect. Looks really nice, add icicles, all that stuff can be done procedurally, I just have to keep writing it out. So here's our this one. Cool, so that's gonna wrap it up for this one. Let me jump out of this. And so yeah, this is in early release, which doesn't mean a ton these days, but my game actually is early release. Every build I put out, which is about every month or so, I can't legally say that I do that or guarantee it, but I update about every month. Makes the game drastically different. We add new things, we're listening to the feedback from the users. And again, this is Cinematography DB on Instagram. These are my posts from being here so far, building into iOS. If you follow us here, this is where most of the new stuff is being kind of shown as a demo. So thanks for coming, and I think we're doing Q&A. Thank you.
And we are doing Q&A.
Hi, is there an option for lookup tables to import them for director for DPs? Or?
It is possible. I haven't written it yet, but the Unreal Engine has the ability to work in Aces even and bring it in. You are looking at, I'd have to talk to the engineers, a different color space. So if you put like a Rec 709 Area Alexa LUT on this, it's not going to look the same because this is Unreal Engine like HDR. But you can color grade it, and I could write like a little UI. You could bring in a camera LUT, but it's not a camera you're used to seeing the colors of, so I don't know how it would translate. It might get you halfway there, though, something like that.
Hey, I got 3 quick questions here, over here.
Oh, you have some.
Is it possible to change the size of the sensor of your camera? Is the first question.
It's not an option yet, but it is possible, yeah.
That would be cool. And can you import your own geometry, texture geometry?
The most asked question from everyone. I'm not going to write that, because that's deep. Someone has to like get into the FBX format. Someone is writing it, and that's the cool part about this project is like, I write what I write, like the cameras and the lights. Everything else I bring in, right? So someone's writing an FBX importer, a runtime FBX importer. He finishes writing it, puts it on the marketplace. We can do it, but I can't write it. But it looks like it's going to happen.
But that is going to work with your program.
It
natively.
would, yeah. In theory, it's not out, but like, if they write it and it works, then we can do it too. Yeah.
And the last question is, it's kind of similar, will it be possible to import Alembic files like animated characters or what have you, which would make the whole system a lot more...
Possibly, I'm not sure. I'd have to look into it. I think first is like, is there a UE4 workflow for it, and then is there a runtime? But it's possible. It's running. It's a packaged Unreal Engine project. So once it can be done, it's not something I write. That's kind of like an Unreal Engine thing. Currently, no. But Alembic, I think it's coming. I'd have to talk to Unreal Engine about that. But currently, no.
Hi. First, thanks for the talk. We are currently working on a not similar. We are doing also runtime stuff in Unreal Engine for ArcViz and stuff. And have you found a way to get into the some sort of mod support to get external content into Unreal in runtime? At
runtime for like a packaged game?
Yeah.
It's definitely C++, which I try to stay away from. But you can, with like the procedural mesh component, if you wanted to write it, you'd have to read the FBX in and then rewrite. Yeah. You basically rewrite the triangles and rewrite the UVs one by one. That's like with an importer.
Or have you thought about for like more Unreal Engine focused people to make it possible to use like some sort of raw project files like they used on like Arc Survival Evolved or so, that you can use like the Unreal Engine to add new assets to it. So don't release it as a package build, but releasing it as like some sort of project file which is locked down or so.
Yeah, we haven't gone that route yet, but through Steam Workshop, though we might be going to the Epic Games Store, which makes sense. It is possible. We haven't done modding yet. I still don't know how modding works. I know Bus Simulator does it. Like you can add buses into that. It does require people. If you're using Unreal Engine, you're in a good shape. But yeah, I think importing like if you package a proper U asset, I think importing that's actually pretty straightforward because it's the same format. But we don't do it yet. I haven't figured out modding yet, how it really works.
I think you just answered my question, but it was going to be, did you write it entirely in blueprints?
It's like 100% blueprints with like some C++ stuff that like needed to be C++, basically. And then a lot of plugins from the community, you know, like I only been doing this for a year, but I'm able to pull from like the whole development community, everyone that makes plugins and assets for Unreal Engine. That's how this happens. If I had to make even half of this stuff, I would never have done it. So that's one of the cool things is I can just pull in some, like all the file IO stuff is someone else's plugin, right? So they went into C++, exposed everything, and then I have all the blueprints, and that's what we're waiting for the FBX importer. Someone's writing it right now on the Facebook group. I think he's gonna make it live soon. I'm like, I'll buy 100 versions of this, you know, when it comes out. He writes it, I'll make a little dialogue, you import an FBX, and you know, so it's like kind of it's a cool thing with development right now is that we can do that. I don't have to actually write it, because that would take me like, to research the whole FBX format and write that would take too long for me.
Yes. I have a question on real locations. How does it work, and what's your thoughts about research, location research, and implementing it and using it in your...
So we don't have anything currently that would be like, we take like geodata and bring it in. But I think for most previs, or the previs that I'm looking for, like these are quick sessions, is to give someone that's like options that it's close enough. It's like we're in the forest, we're at like a city, and keeping it general. That's my first attack, is to make like generic ones. So people can just like, I've got 5 minutes, we're in a city, he's standing there, there's the car, that's the shot I want. That's what we're doing.
But does a scanner exist which can talk together?
Do you do scanning at all? Like, so
No,
actually work with like an hexagon.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I've done a lot of 3D scanning. The workflow is still pretty laborious to get it back in. But yeah, technically, if you had a LiDAR scanner and you meshed it and you have to have an artist prep it, so it's not like, you know, directors are doing this. It is definitely possible to do that. Scanning to BIM to Unreal Engine is like a whole different talk, but that's stuff we're looking at. I think Apple's actually the one who's going to make it for consumers. Like next gen iPad with like ARKit 4, you just like scan the room, boom, I'll have the iOS integration already. You just bring it right in. That's the hope. I can't speak for any of them, of course.
That's great. We're out of time. Thank you very much,
Cool.
Matt
Thank you.
Workman. Presentation.